Hello. Let's talk about living in deep waters. A man once shared that he loved fishing on the Mississippi River. Once his small boat drifted into a deeper current than he expected. What looked calm on the surface suddenly became violent. It began pulling the boat faster and stronger beyond his control. Deep water doesn't often look dangerous at first, but once the current grabs you, you're in trouble. Life can feel that way. There are seasons when problems seem to multiply, like disappointment, criticism, grief, or betrayal. And suddenly it feels like the water is rising around you. That's the kind of moment David describes in Psalms 69. He feels exhausted, overwhelmed, and sinking underwater with trouble. Yet in the middle of the deep waters, he does something powerful. He prays to God for rescue. David reminds us of an important truth. When life feels like deep waters, prayer becomes our lifeline. He shows us how believers respond when life is drowning them. Some of us today know exactly what that feels like. Situations we didn't expect, struggles we didn't plan, fighting someone else's fight. But living in deep waters isn't beyond God's reach. The same God who heard David's prayer still hears us today. Pray when the waters are rising. Psalm 69 verse 13 says, "But as for me, I pray to you, O Lord, at the right time." When is the right time to pray? 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 17 says, "Pray without ceasing." It doesn't mean you must pray every second of the day, but believers should talk and keep their hearts open to God daily. For example, whispering a quick prayer while driving, thanking God for small blessings, asking for wisdom before making a decision. David's first response to deep waters was prayer. He faced problems because of his faithfulness to God. He was mocked, insulted, and publicly humiliated. He was the object of gossip around town. But still, he prayed. When life gets difficult, some people panic, some complain, and others retreat. Some are overwhelmed and are tempted to leave God. But continue praying, no matter how bad things get. David said, "As for me, I will pray." God will hear your prayers and rescue you. What a friend we have in Jesus. Deep water should drive us toward God, not away from Him. Prayer connects us to God when circumstances try to drown us. Remember, in deep water, you can't tread water forever. You may be a good swimmer, but soon you'll get tired and start to sink. Prayer reminds us that God is still in control of the storm. If you can't control the waves, call on the one who walks on the water. Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 3 says, God says, "Call on me, and I will answer you." God encouraged Jeremiah to call on him. When we call on God, we can expect him to answer. Then we must obey him by laying aside our stubbornness and fear. Remember, when life pushes you down, prayer lifts you up. Trust God's mercy in deep waters. Psalm 69 verse 13 says, "In the multitude of thy mercy, hear me." David knew something about God, that his mercy is greater than our problems. Even when underwater, David appealed to God's mercy. Deep waters don't cancel God's compassion. Deep waters don't mean God has abandoned you. Sometimes God allowed deep waters to draw us closer to him. The same God who allowed the storm is the same God keeping you through the storm. Peter walked on the water when he stepped out of the boat in Matthew chapter 14. But he began to sink when he focused on the storm. He cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately, Jesus reached down and lifted him up. That same Jesus still reaches into deep waters today. Lamentations chapter 3 says, "His mercies are new every morning." God willingly responds with help when we ask. Is there a sin in your life that you don't think God will forgive? Remember, God's love and mercy are greater than any sin, and he promises us forgiveness. You may be in deep waters, but you're still covered by mercy. Ask God for a deep water rescue. Psalm 69 verse 18 says, "Come near and rescue me." On more than one occasion, David asked God to rescue him. There's an old gospel song said that Jesus will fix it. Is there anybody in the sound of my voice here still believe that Jesus still can fix it? When called believers should expect God to move. God specializes in rescuing sinking people. God can rescue you out of situations you can't fix yourself. God can restore what the enemy meant to destroy. Your deepest struggle can become God's greatest victory. Sometimes we wait before we're rescued. But while you're waiting, keep on praying. Don't give up on God, because God won't give up on you. Psalms chapter 40, verse 2 says, He lifted me from the pit and mud and set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm foundation. Waiting for God to rescue us isn't always easy. But David received 4 benefits from waiting. God lifted him out of his despair. God set his feet on solid ground. And God put a new song of praise in his mouth. Often blessings can't be received unless we're willing to wait. Everyone will face seasons of deep waters. But Psalm 69 teaches us 3 things. Pray when the water rises. Trust God's mercy in the storm. Expect God to rescue. You may feel like you're sinking today, but the good news is God still rescues people in deep waters. God sent his son Jesus to die on the cross at Calvary for our sins, because humanity was sinking in deep waters. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son to rescue us. There's an old song that said, Jesus saves. Is there anybody in the sound of my voice believe has a testimony today that Jesus still saves?